The NFL rookie class from the 2025 NFL draft. Should we be worried about these guys and their future in the league, even though it's only been a couple of weeks? Let's find out. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to BPA. This is the best podcast available. I'm your host, Luke Easterling, and this is the Athlon Sports NFL Draft Show. And today we're going to get into, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but man, there are some of the most high-profile rookies from the 2025 NFL Draft that just haven't shown up in the way that we expected them to through the first couple of weeks. Guys that we were just hyping up all off-season long. These are the top players in the draft. They're in places where they're going to get the ball a ton. They're going to be stars right away. And while we've seen, late round picks and seventh round guys and undrafted guys making a big impact, these are the most recognizable names from the draft, and they're just not moving the needle. They're just not doing anything with it. We're going to get into it. Greg Auman from Fox Sports, he covers all things NFL. He's going to return to the show and talk to us about how he feels about these rookies, how they're being used, whether or not we should be worried about their futures and their potential. He's going to break it all down for us later on in the interview room. Before we get there, you know where we go first. We go to the top of the board. A couple of big storylines, college one and NFL one in terms of the draft landscape and how things are changing. Some stuff I've written this week for athlonsports.com to highlight that. So let's go to the top of the board. All right, so the first thing, I know we talked about this last week on top of the board as well. We were kind of breaking down Arch Manning's first couple of games, and it's like, okay, Ohio State, he struggled really bad, but hey, that was on the road, first road start. It's Ohio State. Kind of got to give him a pass there. San Jose State, a little more of the same, where it's, he scores 5 touchdowns, but the throws are still skipping on the ground, and he's missing wide open guys, and he doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. His mechanics are all over the place, and he's, even on some of the touchdowns he scored, the throws just weren't great and would have been easier touchdowns if he had made a better throw. Last week against UTEP was the worst film we've seen so far. Because again, another home game, another should be fairly easy opponent for a team that has national title aspirations. I mean, he had 10 straight incomplete passes. I think he had 4 or 5 completions in the first half completely. Ended the game, I think, with 114 yards, had a touchdown. The interception he threw was just absolutely horrendous, just flying around in the backfield and then just heaving a prayer over the middle of the field at the last second, like which every quarterback is just taught not to do from like Pop Warner level. And again, there's just so many mechanical issues that are so simple. So all that to say, I posted a new mock draft at athlonsports.com this week, and Arch Manning is gone. I'm reclassifying him as a 2027 prospect, because when I watch him play, the issues that are plaguing him right now are just so fundamental in nature that he needs to go back to the drawing board and fix his mechanics, his throwing motion, all of these fundamental things before he even thinks about going to the NFL. Like, he needs to figure out how to be a productive quarterback against UTEP way before he needs to figure out how he's going to be a productive quarterback against even the worst defense in the NFL. Because as anybody will tell you, every time we have a dominant college team, they're like, oh, they should play the Panthers or the 0-16 Lions. The worst NFL team would blow the best college football team out of the water every single game, like 100-0. I firmly believe that's how much the difference is. So for Arch Manning, he just needs to play a lot more football. Like he needs to take a lot more reps. He needs a lot of things fixed. This guy has just got to put the NFL draft on the back burner. The rest of us who cover the event need to pretend he's not even in this class. I know he's eligible, but he needs to be a 2027 prospect. Maybe we should have listened to Archie Manning, his grandfather, who said, hey, he's going to be at Texas in 2026. You didn't need to worry about the draft. That's what it looks like for me. I'm not going to be concerned with him until he makes huge strides. And maybe he does. Maybe he flips a switch, gets some things fixed, and by the end of this season, they go deep into the playoffs. He's playing really great football in meaningful games down the stretch. Maybe that happens and we revisit this conversation, and he ends up back at the top of the board. But for now, he's not on my board at all. There's a lot of fun quarterbacks in this class that I think are going to be worthy of first round, top 5, top 10 consideration. I'm going to be focused on those guys, the Lenora Sellers, the Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Fernando Mendoza. Those guys are going to have my attention as it relates to the 2026 draft. Arch Manning, I'm just going to kind of punt on that and see what happens the rest of the year, but he's a 2027 guy for me. Looking back at this past draft, number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward, everybody just kind of thought like, it's a weak quarterback class. He's going to go number 1 just because everybody's so desperate for quarterbacks, and he's the best one this year, so I guess they have to take him number 1. So many people ignored just how good Cam Ward was last year, not just as a Patrick Mahomes-y type playmaker when things break down and he makes these highlight reel plays. He was the best quarterback from the pocket in college football last year. And we've talked about this multiple times on this show, where nobody gives him enough credit for how effective, how elite he was from the pocket, similar to Lamar Jackson, the way he's become an elite pocket passer in the NFL. And everybody still kind of just thinks of him as this running quarterback who throws every now and then. It's just not the reality when you watch the film and look at the numbers. Cam Ward was that way last year at Miami. And I know the Titans are 0-2. I know they've got a lot of issues. And I know it's just one play. But, man, the touchdown that Cam Ward threw to Emeka Egbuka, his fellow rookie out of Stanford last week, was just everything that you look for in a quarterback where you're like, man, I think that kid can be special, which, again, is why the Titans were perfectly comfortable and confident to take him at number 1 overall, even though they had needs all over the place. They could have easily gone a bunch of different positions. They need a lot of things. They're fully rebuilding that franchise. But, man, Cam Ward, that play is just a glimpse of the special superstar potential that I think he brings to the table, where it separates you from the quarterbacks in the league that are just, above average. They can get the job done. They're quality starters. And, again, those guys are so valuable. It's hard just to even find a guy that can do that. It's so much harder to find a guy that just has that instinct, that knack, and the combination of mental and physical traits that I think Cam Ward brings to the table. Again, he was a top 15 guy on my board. I still had him too low, I think, based on the early returns and the way I think. And again, this guy is so experienced. The guy that was a 0-star recruit coming out of high school, nobody cared about him as a recruit. He goes to Incarnate Word. We only care about him because he puts up video game numbers with like 50 million touchdowns, 2 interceptions or whatever at Incarnate Word. Then he goes to Washington State, and everybody's like, oh, let's see if he can do it against Power 5 competition. And he does it at Washington State. Then he goes to Miami, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, now he's in the ACC. That's going to be tougher. And he gets better. Every time he makes the leap, he gets better and better and better. That's the sign of a truly special quarterback. And I think even for just that one play, we saw what he's capable of. It's one of those throws where when he releases the ball, you're like, no, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. But his confidence is backed up by the tools that he has. He's so confident in his arm because he knows he can make that throw. It's a perfect throw right over the defense, perfect amount of touch, the trajectory, everything was perfect, and ends up being a highlight reel touchdown. So I know things are hard in Tennessee right now, but man, you've got to be so excited about just these glimpses that you're seeing from Cam Ward, because that's why he went number 1 overall. That's why the Titans were so confident in him. And I think in 2 or 3 years, man, Titans fans are going to be super happy with the special player that he's turned into and how far he can take this team because of what he brings to the table. All right, welcome into the interview room here at BPA, and we have reached official friend of the show status with Greg Auman, the NFL reporter from Fox Sports. Welcome back to the show, Greg. Thanks for taking the time, my man.
Oh, always happy to be on with you, man. Hope you're doing well.
Doing great out here. Again, yesterday we had like 60 degrees and nice and breezy out here in the Pacific Northwest. So I know you don't want to hear that back home in Tampa, where I'm from. But
I was in Atlanta, and it was kind of cooler. And then I was in Chicago. It's nice. I was in Kansas City and in Houston. I had 4 road games in 9 days. So I'm familiar with the idea of cooler weather. I don't know it right now. It's
right. And I understand the idea of fall. I don't know that I believe its existence, right, when you're in that area. But no, man, it's so great to have you back. I wanted to pick your brain because now that we've got a couple of weeks of NFL action in the books here, I mean, I'm a draft guy. This is a draft show. So the NFL side of the hype machine is always, okay, all the rookies that were just drafted, all the guys that we spent months and months and months the year before hyping up. What are the early returns? It's not preseason anymore. It's not training camp clips. It's not any of this stuff. It's real rubber meets the road type stuff. We got 2 weeks of film. I know it's only 2 weeks, but it's 2 actual real weeks. It's 2 real games. It's 2 like, okay, how are these guys going to be used? And I think the most interesting one for me, we talked so much leading up to the 2025 draft about how do you value Travis Hunter? Because the most unique thing about him, and I think what made him such a special player and the number 1 player on my board, his best trait was the fact that he could play 2 positions really, really, really well. But the hardest question for me to answer, even for myself, my own evaluation of him is, if you're going to take him in the top 5, which again, not only did he go number 2, but Jacksonville traded a lot to go up to number 2 to get him. Is he good enough as just a receiver or just a corner to warrant that kind of pick, that kind of investment? And I wasn't certain one way or the other whether or not I could say that. What I did say and what I do know is that I think he would be more valuable as a corner than a wide receiver, partly because I think it's harder to find those guys. I think it's harder to find elite shutdown corners than it is to find a really, really good wide receiver, which I think he can be. And I've spoken to my, Doug Farrar, who talked to Dick LeBeau, who talked to Richard Sherman and was like, damn, man, they should really play him at corner. 2 games in, man, he's playing like 37% of the snaps at corner. He's playing like 2/3 of the snaps on offense. What is it? He's got like, I'm going to bring up the number. He's got 9 catches for 55 yards.
Less than 4 yards a target. You see what the long is? 10 yards.
It's rough, man. So I guess like that's what I want to see from your perspective. Like, are they even using him? Like, are they aware that they gave up what they gave up and used? Like, because like so far, I don't understand I don't know if they understand what they've got and how they're using him is just confusing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the going all in, trade up to get this guy.
Yeah.
But the other thing, like when you say like, oh, he's 2 players in one, it's like they gave up more than 2 guys to get him. They gave up 2 first-round picks and change. So you're getting 2 guys for 1 on the 53, but you gave up a lot to get him. So I went up there in preseason, was up there just for a single day of practice. And it was like they were still working out the cadence of what days he's on offense, what days he's on defense, helping him learn one side completely. And it was kind of like if they went 2 days in a row where they changed sides, they lost a little bit there. So they're trying to figure out how you have some permanence where you're an offensive guy today. This is what you should focus on. And that's going to be a work in progress. Nobody's really gone through that.
Yeah.
With any, especially at this level, at this high expectation of it. You'll see, again, Bo Melton changes sides and stuff. It's neat. There's almost no expectations. Anything you pull off there is just kind of gravy. This is a number 2 overall pick. So, like you said, you have to have one side. Like they're saying, he's going to be an every down receiver, right? He's going to be treated like a regular full-time receiver. He'll moonlight on defense. So again, if you've thrown the ball at him 14 times in 2 games, and the single biggest outcome is 10 yards, that's rough. And again, it's week 2. There's lots of people that come out of the gate slow. He could be a 1,000-yard receiver. He could have 4 picks in a season. We don't know. There hasn't been a whole lot right now to make you say, oh, wow, that guy's going to be amazing. I mean, the Iron Man aspect, he's played 133 snaps. There's 8 Jaguars that have played 133 snaps on offense and defense. It's just they're full-time on their side. So I think there's a completely unique challenge in finding out what his limits are, adding more onto his plate, both physically and mentally, that we're not going to solve. We're not going to see a finished product in week 1 or week 2. That'll be something they get better at throughout this rookie year. But right now, again, if you bought a Travis Hunter 12 jersey, you're in the stands, and you got 14 targets for 9 catches for 55 yards and 3 tackles. No interceptions, no forced fumbles, not anything that would count as a splash play. Again, they could have been at number 5, and they could have had a first rounder next year. This was going to be the bold, more difficult path that they took. So you can't necessarily expect immediate returns. If we thought, he's going to have a 100-yard game, 2 touchdowns already, that's not him right now.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, the practice planning. Like that's always what it came down to for me. Like, how do I quantify his value and his best trait in that Iron Man type of way when this is not Madden? Like, it's not fantasy football. Like, yes, you're getting 2 guys in one. He is one human being. Like he is just one person who cannot be in 2 places at once.
Right. And the other thing you have to remember that I don't think people think about is the logistics of him only being in one place at a time. If he's out there on offense, he's not talking to his position coach with the other corners. He's not learning what he did wrong on that last drive. He's doing.
He doesn't have the whiteboard. He doesn't have the tablet.
No surface out. There's nothing. He can come back over, and they can be like, "Hey, by the way, they talked about how we have to do this, this, and this." But you weren't there for that class. You're getting notes from somebody else. So there's going to be a learning curve that makes that tougher. And I think meeting time, during the week, again, he has to choose. He can be in one meeting or the other.
Only so many hours in the day, buddy.
Right. They're not. I mean, even if you want to like rearrange it where it's like receivers are meeting at 12 and corners are at 12:30, you can do that. I still don't know if you get everything from both rooms. So this is something that's going to have to take some time. It's probably, as much as we talk about the Iron Man going both ways, I think it's a bigger mental hurdle than it is a physical one. Because I think if you're tired, they just play you less at corner. But I think for you to know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, to have a full route tree on offense, to be involved in multiple defenses where it's not like, hey, anytime Travis is out there, we're in this defense. Because the other side's going to figure that out quickly. Like I said, work in progress. I don't want to be too harsh on the kid after 2 games.
Right.
One that was a nice win. They looked good in week 1. They let things get away with the Bengals there. But yeah, I think if you told me 1-1 for the Jags after 2 weeks, it's about what I thought they would be.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about hyped up players, I don't know that anybody outside of Travis Hunter was more hyped up going into this draft and into this season than Ashton Jeanty. Anytime a running back goes number 6 overall, and pretty much everybody in the NFL community is like, yeah, I get it. I see it. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, this is so shocking kind of thing. Like, everybody saw it with Ashton Jeanty. And not just him, like the other first round running back, Omarion Hampton, who went to the Chargers, like, Hampton's got 72 yards on 23 carries, no touchdowns, 3.1 a carry. Ashton Jeanty's got 81 on 30 carries with a touchdown, 2.7 a carry. And he's got 5 catches for 3 yards. Like,
with a long of 4.
I mean, there's and again, like, and the fit, like, I've seen reps. I know I hate the whole like Twitter clip culture kind of thing, but like he's trying to pass pro, and like he's just like kind of deer in the headlights, lost out there on certain plays. Like, again, it's only 2 weeks, but I feel like when you look around the league and you see, especially like a guy like Bill Krosky-Merritt in Washington, a 7th round pick who is just hit the ground running, jumping right in after not even playing college football last season after week 1, by the way. Like, I think that's what's difficult. Even going back to like a couple years ago when CJ Stroud had incredible season and Bryce Young struggled last year, same exact thing, right? Where your number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, has some struggles. Jaden Daniels looks like, an absolute superstar right away. It's everybody else going like, why can't we have that guy? Like, why can't our guy do that? And I think when you see these 2 first round running backs, top 2 running backs on most people's boards, I think in this business, 3.1, 2.7 yards a carry. And you're like, well, why this is why the people who say you can get a running back whenever say that, because it feels like when these things happen, it's like, man, if you feel like that guy is special, that's great. You better be right. Because if you're not, there's a lot of guys going to be like, yeah, I got this guy in the 4th round and he's got 4 or 5 yards to carry. So I guess, what have you seen from those 2 guys? Like, it's obviously too early to pass judgment on their careers, but like, at what point do you genuinely start to get concerned that these guys just might not be as special as they thought they were?
Right. Oh, it's possible. I mean, I can't think of a bar being set higher for a rookie back than what Jeanty has right now. Like, Bijan may be pretty close to it 2 years ago. Everybody said best in Saquon, like, can't miss, throw out all of your positional value. Don't take a running back too high. It felt like whatever team was going to get Ashton Jeanty was going to be excited about having him. So it's like, I went back just to see what the numbers were. Again, 2,600 yards last year at Boise, 7 yards a carry on 374 carries, just a ridiculous volume season. So again,
and my favorite stat to go along with that, Greg, is that Army was the only team in college football in the FBS last year that faced a 9-man box more often than Boise State. So he did all this with everyone knowing that it's like, he's getting the ball every play. I'm still going to do this.
Right. So to see 2.7, it seems impossible, right? But it's a learning curve for everybody. He doesn't necessarily have the best offensive line in the world. He's playing a higher level of competition, a faster level of linebackers than he's ever known. Omarion Hampton, like I said, I think for you to be the running back in Harbaugh's offense, things are going to be okay for you. It's like to see the job split with him and Najee, where I think it was 14 carries in week 1 and Najee had 5 or something like that. That bodes well for him. Okay. I think that's going to be a strong offense that will have the lead and will run the ball a lot. So I think by the time we get to November, I think Omarion Hampton's going to have some really, I was actually high on Caleb Johnson. I thought Caleb Johnson might kind of be the dark horse in this class. All he's really done so far is muffed a kickoff return that was recovered by the other team for a touchdown. So I feel worse about that. That was my, oh wait, this is the rookie. I've got a Caleb Johnson at the bottom of my bench with like 6% owned in fantasy right now. But yeah, like I said, with Omarion in particular, I think he'll be fine. I think it's going to be a strong offense. Again, to get to be a running back with Herbert as your quarterback is a nice place to start in the NFL with Jim Harbaugh running the ball as much as he does. Jeanty, again, like Geno has 4 picks. Geno has the most picks in the NFL. This hasn't been the start they wanted, but you have a new coach, new coordinator. Everything around him is new, if you will. So there's going to be a little grace and a little let's give it a couple weeks to take and see how things shake out. I think he's going to have one of those, like, if it's not this week, it's the next week where you blink and he has 135 yards on 12 carries. And you're like, oh, that's Ashton Jeanty. That's right.
I think this, like with running backs, it's similar to like, it's not the same, obviously, but like when anybody takes a kicker on day 2, it's like you had better be really, really good basically immediately and basically forever to like justify this pick. And it just feels like so outsized, like so impossibly. That's why I'm always like, just don't do it. Like, don't do it. Don't put expectations on that guy. I've also said before that history is honest about this, that if you want a barely 1,000-yard rusher, you can probably find those guys in 3rd, 4th round and beyond. Yeah. If you want the guys that move the needle, like we've seen over the last couple of years, with even in their veteran kind of ages, with Saquon, what he did last year, Derrick Henry, what he's still doing somehow at 30 plus, those guys you cannot get those guys in the 3rd or 4th round or the 7th round. Like you've got, look at the best elite, like the actual difference making backs. Saquon, number 2 overall, Bijan 8, Gibbs is 12. Derrick Henry was kind of an aberration because nobody really knew what to do with him at that body size. So he went early 2nd round, and that's still like the edge of the elite superstar. Yeah, McCaffrey was a top 8 pick, I think. So like I'm adamant that like, if you just want like a general productive back, you can probably find those guys in the middle rounds. If you want the special ones, you have to draft them early, and you got to pay them more than you would like to. And for the opportunity to have the type of run that Saquon had last year, which won them a Super Bowl, right? Like that's the risk reward. So I feel like it is very much like that's a swing for the fences, understanding that if you miss, everybody's going to hound you worse than if you missed on the guy you're supposed to take. Like if you take a left tackle or a pass rusher, everybody, or even a quarterback, it's just like, okay, they whiffed, but like, it's a premium position. Like you have to take those guys and hope that they just, work out because the position's so important. They're gonna dog you if you do it with a running back, man. They're gonna dog you and be like, hey man, you could have got that production in the 5th round. You could have got that disappointment. It wouldn't have been a disappointment. I guess, do you still feel like it's worth it to try to take those swings on just a player? And again, we're talking about people, like the person that when you get into the room, and the Raiders talked about this specifically with Jeanty, like just made their favorite player in the draft, like as a person and as a player. You just have to be okay with that, right? You just have to be okay with if it misses at that position.
I feel like Vegas, you got to swing big, man. You have to go for star power. Okay. It's kind of like you're competing with so much in that town that you kind of have to gamble at the high reward positions, if you will. Okay. And it means there's more risk involved. But again, it means you trade for Geno Smith. You have to have a quarterback that they know and like and have heard of. You have to go get a running back. Again, they had Josh Jacobs. They had a really productive, good back. Okay. You got to, like I said, it's all about swing for the fences. It's not betting on something that pays, $1.50 on a dollar. You kind of have to swing big. And that's what I thought they were doing there. And I think it could still work out for them. You want to have people, again, if you're Pete Carroll and you're 74 now, as of yesterday or whatever it was, you're 74 years old. You need things that can turn quickly. You need things that can provide immediate returns. It's not, I don't think he even wants like a 3-year path to relevancy in playoffs. He wants to be there in January. So I like the idea of this is a game-changing back. You can get him, even though you have to go above the positional norms that we allow for.
Yeah.
To get what you need, you kind of have to do that. So I still don't mind the pick. It's a slow first 2 weeks for him, but I still like it. I think he could really do a lot of things for them and make life easier for Geno and for Pete.
I've always said this about quarterbacks in particular, but I'm like, if you just pick a quarterback who's just kind of meh, they're probably going to fire you anyway.
Right.
Like if you just get the guy that's like kind of okay and you end up like barely 500 and like the quarterback purgatory, like you're going to get fired at the same rate, like at the same time than if you just busted on the guy. Like that's why I've swung so much further to the, like, take the special guy, like take the guy that has the potential to be special. Because if you're wrong about him, they're going to fire you just as quickly as if you're right about the guy who's just kind of boring and doesn't move the needle. Right. That's how I feel. So the last couple of rookies I want to ask about in terms of like just disappointment. When you are the Chicago Bears and you spend a top 10 pick on a tight end and you spend another top 40 pick on a wide receiver that everybody is like, oh, this is Ben Johnson's new Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is the guy. So we got Colston Loveland, top 10 pick. We've got, and again, it's so impossible to do this without comparing what is happening with Tyler Warren in Indy, the impact he's had over the last 2 weeks, versus Colston Loveland, who has 2 catches for 12 yards. And he was taken 4 spots before Tyler Warren, so you had the opportunity to take him. Loveland Burton has 2 catches for 2 yards. And so, and I'm not bitter at all as someone who valued him very highly in Dynasty and drafted him very highly. But I guess when you look at this offense, man, there's a lot of blame to go around and a lot of like dysfunction, a lot of things they're trying to figure out with a new offense and a complex offense. But is it unfair for Bears fans in particular to look at these 2 picks as like, man, these guys were supposed to like come in and make an immediate impact, especially at tight end in the top 10. And then a guy that was really highly productive at Missouri and Luther Burton III thought he was the steal there in the second round. I mean, that's just nothing. Not only is the ball not really coming their way, when it does, there's just nothing there. Is that a bigger Chicago Bears problem more than it is a problem about what these 2 guys are bringing to the table?
No, it's surprising. Like I was in Chicago for Bears Vikings in week 1, and there's that moment where it was like a screen pass to the left, and you're like, you literally look at the flip and go like, sorry, who's 84? That's Colston Loveland. Like I didn't realize he existed in this game to this point. And you have a top 10 overall pick. Like usually you're like watching him. How are they lining him up? Where is he? Is he split? Is he off? You know, I wasn't aware he had been in the game, and his highlight was like a 6-yard catch, and that was it. And again, like I felt like Chicago had zero subtlety in terms of we are going to hook up Caleb Williams with everything we can. We are going to get him the most coveted coordinator in the league. We're going to spend wildly to upgrade his offensive line. We're going to put the first 2 picks into a tight end and a receiver. When you already have Cole Kmet, you already have DJ Moore, you already have Odunze as last year's first round pick. So you've put assets around him already, and you're overloading him with talent on offense. Okay. And if all
the veteran additions to the offensive line too, completely rebuilt that interior.
If they were 2-0 and we're having this conversation about, man, they haven't even really had to use Loveland or Bolden. I mean, you know, Luther, I don't even know if he's out there. What numbers he wear? But they're 0-2, and they haven't looked good on offense. And they have these 2 immensely talented players. And I'm not saying either of them felt like ready-made, hit the ground running from the start, plug and play types, but they have 4 targets. And it's 14 yards of offense. Here we are complaining about Ashton Jeanty having 2-7. Okay. This is surprising. That's all. And again, I think Ben Johnson is a first-time head coach. He's still a play caller. There's a lot of new pieces in play where he's figuring things out. I'm sure if he looks back on things, he would like to get those guys more involved. But again, that's one of those where, again, there are things they're already self-scouting and figuring out. And I'm sure somebody's saying, hey, by the way, we got to get those guys more involved. Though those 2, I mean, they should have 10 targets between them. I guess every game, I would think. I mean, again, I think DJ Moore's done. They're using DJ Moore as a running back. They're doing a lot of creative things on offense. They're not including the most exciting things they added to their offense this year. So I think, again, it might be week 6, and these guys are each catching a touchdown every game, and things are fine. But right now, it just – there's a lot in Chicago that's troublesome. They've got injuries they're dealing with that are complicating things. To be 0-2 in the division, I think people were excited. You go to third quarter, I'm in there, Chicago, and they're up 17-6, and McCarthy's throwing a pick 6, and it seems like, wow, the whole
Super Bowl, baby, Super Bowl
flipped. It's like the Packers and the Bears were, I think, 1-11 in the division. They were going to be 2-0 in week 1. And you're like, yes, this is chaos. This is amazing. And then it's like their defense stops, and it's like McCarthy touchdown, McCarthy touchdown, McCarthy touchdown. Oh no,
Yeah.
again, they still could very well turn this around. It's just 2 games, but lots of other bigger problems than using their top 2 rookies efficiently in Chicago right now.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to something I said earlier where it's like, this is not just you plug a player into your Madden slot into the depth chart and like they can do everything that the guy that you took out can do, because it's just like you're just putting a player in a spot. Like I feel like there's so much of this that has to be a playbook thing, a digestion thing, like just a reality of human consumption of information that like 2 weeks into your NFL season, maybe you're not able to call everything that you want to be able to call when those guys are in the game, which again, you can have the conversation about whether or not that should happen and how that plays into the value of the player. But like that for me is so much a part of it, is trying to remember the human aspect of like, listen, why is Zacchaeus in the game instead of Burton? Well, Zacchaeus played a ton more football. Like he's again, not the first guy you call when you think about the best slot receivers in the league, but he's right. Played enough snaps to where you can put him in and know what you're getting, as opposed to a rookie in a lot of ways. And I think that's the part of it that I would caution everyone to pump the brakes on any of these guys, is like, listen, it's such a small sample size. It's not indicative of what they are capable of over the next 8 to 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
But it's hard. It's so hard not to be like, man, when you invest those types of resources and you see the immediate return on 7th round picks and everywhere in between all across the league, and you're like, why can't our top 10 tight end do this? Why can't our top 6 running back do these things? What is the problem? And again, it's always more than one guy, but
like this draft, the top of this draft was Loveland and Warren, and they were everybody's top 2. Okay. And Loveland went first, but I felt like Colts and tight end was the single most obvious. Everyone has them taking a tight end at 14 match, because they had
the only reason we didn't have him taking Warren because nobody thought he'd be there, right?
Right. And everybody had Loveland there. So it's one of those where right now we're evaluating those 2 against each other. But again, Loveland goes to a place that has lots back on offense, new coordinator, a tight end in place to take snaps. He has to work his way in. Warren can be there every down tight end. He can jump in right away. Again, he's my fantasy tight end, and I kind of knew like he's going to have 100 targets this year. He's going to have a ridiculous Bowers volume impact in this offense, just because there's not that much even out there. I'm not really that sold on the Colts receivers either. So I just thought he'd have a big share. Didn't know who the heck was going to throw him the ball. Probably didn't think it was Daniel Jones when I drafted him. But through 2 weeks, he's been the guy you thought he would be. And Loveland has 12 yards.
So there's that.
But honestly,
right, listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, if you got something more on that, we can.
No, I mean, you talk about receivers. It makes you appreciate here in Tampa what Emeka Egbuka has done. In that, again, he goes 19 and played, I forget, 87% of the snaps, I think, on Monday night. 3 touchdowns in his first 2 games, has been an every down receiver for them. And for him, it's one of those where, just as Luther hasn't played as much in Chicago, okay, Egbuka's had everything kind of go in his favor, in that Godwin is still hurt, McMillan is hurt. So he could be the exact same player. And if those guys are back healthy, he has 4 targets right now, and is every bit the player and the person and the promising young receiver he is. The opportunity wasn't there. He just happened to step in a situation where week 1, you were wide receiver 2. You're directly benefiting from all the attention Mike Evans gets, and he's taken full advantage of it. And Baker has trusted him so much that he's thrown him 3 touchdowns in the first, 3 halves of the season or whatever it was. The fit doesn't always take right away. And I don't want to write people off just because they didn't have the good fortune to step into something where they could make a huge impact right out of the gate.
Right, because in Tampa, it's all continuity, right? Even like they technically have a new offensive coordinator, but it's not really like it's so much the same offense, and you got so many of those same starters, and it's so much continuity that Egbuka just shows up and it's a well-oiled machine. That's just not the case for really any of the teams we've discussed with those other rookies. So that makes a ton of sense. Before I let you go, we've got to do our random draft player from history, and I did a little recon before this because I wanted to make sure my timeline lines up. So my apologies in advance. If it makes you feel a little old, that in 2003, it's December of 2003, and I believe you're either still covering high school sports for the Tampa Bay Times. I'm a senior in high school, and I I am playing in the Hillsborough County Senior All-Star game in high school football at Raymond James Stadium. So we get to play at Raymond James Stadium for a night. The only thing that was bad about that night was it was freezing cold, Greg. Like, it was December 6th. I'll never forget it. And it was like 30-something degrees in Tampa in December, which is just absolutely bonkers. So I remember they wanted us to go out and take like the team photo next to the pirate ship. Right. Nobody wanted to leave the locker room because we're just freezing. Like, we were staying in there. First of all, like, we're watching USC on the TV, like Mike Williams, who was from Tampa, like he's catching like 18 touchdowns on TV. So we're having fun watching TV, but they're like, hey, we got to go out and take this picture. We had like parkas over our pads, like before we went out. Like, all us Florida kids had no hope. Like, if you're trying to recruit us to like a D3 school in Wisconsin, we threw all those letters away after that night. Like, it was never happening again. So all that to say, that night was the first time I ever got to play with a guy who I understood like the difference between my level of talent and ability and a guy that I think could go to the next level. Because sometimes, like, you know, in high school, I remember there was a Times like prep preview where all the teams had their previews or whatever, and it said I was like 6'2" and 185 when I was like a sophomore. Like, I've never been 6'2" in my life. As a sophomore, I was probably like 155 at best, like soaking wet. So whoever put that in there, thanks for that. I appreciate you. But when I saw Riverview running back Tyrone McKenzie listed at 6'3" and 220 pounds, I was like, no way. There's no way. And then I stood in the huddle at the Hillsborough County Senior All-Star game in 2003 with Tyrone McKenzie, and I'll be damned. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, all of it. And I'm like, oh, that's what a future NFL football player looks like. And so we had, you know, it's an all-star game, so none of us played a ton, but I remember I got to throw a screen pass to him that he turned into a huge, big play. And we had such a fun time playing. It's been fun to catch up over the years. I met up with Tyrone again at the Senior Bowl like 5 or 6 years ago. We got to catch up because he was coaching at Colorado at the time. But his journey has been so fun to follow because he ended up going to Michigan State. He ends up coming back to USF, back home, because I think his mom was sick, so he got a hardship waiver at the time. Yeah. He got to transfer back and finish his career at USF. Ends up being a third-round pick by the Patriots. Didn't stick around in the league long as a player. I know he did come back to Tampa. I think he was with them for a preseason or maybe a practice squad guy. But he's been coaching now for a long, long time. He was at Colorado, like I said, at the time when we hung out at the Senior Bowl. But he's been with the Titans, the Rams. I believe he's an assistant now in Vegas with the Raiders. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just wanted to bring that up again as somebody who covered preps at that time for the Times and then was covering USF when I think he was playing there when he came back from Michigan State. Yeah, I had to throw that one out at you when I came up with this segment here.
Ty's really cool. I covered Ty at every level, which is cool. And that he, like, when you're at the Times, you're always obsessed with locals because, like, anybody, yes, you know, in the counties that that the Times would cover back in the day, you knew all of them, right? And Ty was really cool because he was a Triple Crown guy. He played in Tampa in high school, college, and the Bucs. And it's really rare. Nigel Harris was a kid. Nigel was a linebacker. Again, played at Hillsborough, played at USF, played with the Bucs very briefly, but played with the Bucs. There's only been a couple. 50 years of Bucs football. There's only a couple that can say they did all three, which is really cool. But Ty was one of them. I look him up, and he's still only 39, man. You're not, I know, that's not good for making me feel young. I've got some birthdays coming up here I don't need to get to, but Ty's only 39. So for him to be an NFL linebackers coach is really strong at 39. And he's kind of bounced between colleges and the NFL. He was at Carolina as like an analyst.
Yeah, he was.
So to see him, he's somebody where I've seen him, and he's a guy. Again, you go to like Senior Bowl, you go to Combine, and you have that like the guy looks a lot like Tyrone McKenzie. Yeah. And he is, and he's done really well with it. And it's one of those.
He also still looks like he could play in whatever game he's at, right? Like,
he's still getting to the gym. Okay. He could pass for about 28 and a veteran linebacker. If he has to step in and show them how to do a drill, he's not going to hurt himself doing that, you know? So yeah, Ty McKenzie, Triple Crowner, Tampa high school, college, NFL, really cool to see him. I'm not sure when I'll see the Raiders, but I look for, he's one of those where you got to make sure in pregame you find a way to catch him coming off the field, shake his hand, say hi, and feel old.
Yeah. I feel you again. My apologies for bringing that up in that way, but no, shout out to Ty McKenzie. Keep killing it on the coaching circuit there. But Greg, this is always fun, man. I always appreciate your time. I know it's a busy time of year for all of us, but tell us what you're going to be working on the next few weeks and where everybody can find your work.
Yeah, everything I do is at foxsports.com. I'm on Twitter, on X, at my name, GREGAUMAN. I am home the next 2 weeks, which is nice.
Beautiful.
I was on the road a lot the first 2 weeks by choice. I enjoyed it. But no, Bucks have Jets this week, Eagles the next week. I think I'm going to Jacksonville in week 5 for Chiefs Jaguars on a Monday night. But no, rolling along, man. And I appreciate you reminding me that it was at some point cold in Tampa. Even if it was December, I'm gonna when I go outside right now and immediately start sweating, I will think of that day and whether that will ever happen again in my life here in Tampa.
Also, please pass my not so sad condolences along to Riley on the defeat of his Gators from my University of South Florida.
I will. He's enjoying that. And
tell him I'm not sorry at all.
Will do. They get Miami next, so he's got a fun trip here.
They're gonna find out what the Bulls just found out last week, which is that Miami is a really damn good football team, and that's how it's gonna go. Greg, thanks so much for your time, man. Always fun. Enjoy a pub sub for me this week as payback for the nice weather I have out here in Washington, and we'll talk again soon, my friend.
All right, man. Good to see you.
That's going to do it for this week's episode of BPA. Again, big thanks to Greg Auman from Fox Sports for joining us for a great conversation about some of the struggling rookies in this year's NFL season so far. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get notified when we have new videos. Jump in the comments, give us feedback. We want to see your discussion in there. We want to see if you agree or disagree with the takes on here. We want your feedback on the show, what kind of content you want to see. We want to build the NFL draft show that you want this to be. Thanks again for joining us. Can't wait to bring you another great episode next week.